Okay, there we go. All right, welcome to Calculus 1, Math 201 at City College of New York. We pretend to be excited here, to be here at 8 a.m. so that everyone's excited. I'm so excited. I can't do it. Okay, so this is Math 201, Calculus 1. If you're here, it means you need Calc 1 and you are an engineering major, or you want to be an engineering major, or you're a physics major, or you're a math major, or pretty much anyone who needs Calc 1 besides biology majors and economics majors should be here. So if you are one of those people, you're in the wrong class. You should be doing 205. Okay, so just to make sure that you're in the right class. And so this is Calculus 1. As you can see on the syllabus, my name is Jhevon. You can call me Jhevon, it's fine. And here is my email. That's the email address that you should use to contact me for anything pertaining to this class. Don't email me anywhere else, because I probably won't see it in a timely manner. Office hours, that's kind of a weird time, I know, but that's because I also teach a night class. And it just works out better for my schedule to make the office hour closer to the night class. So usually if I'm in office hours, I might be able to meet with you at other times by appointment, but we'll have to arrange that beforehand. And the office, my office location is here. It's a shared office, and that location is the math department. I might be there sometimes, depending on if I have to make copies of anything. Okay, so that is my website, and this is the class website. So someone was asking a little while ago where you'd be able to access these videos. What is the YouTube page? Well, on that class website is where you're going to find it. So the website is very important. We will be using that all the time. It's a class website. It's important. One, I will post an electronic version of the syllabus there, where all these things that are underlined are actually hyperlinked, so you can get to them quicker if it's a web link. I will also post links to the YouTube videos. I will also post a lot of other nice things, like quizzes and answers. I'll post tests and solutions. I'll post review problems for tests. Any handouts for any topics that I might give you. A lot of the topics that we will be doing involve a lot of word problems, and I don't want to have to always write everything out on the board, so I might put something in the handout, etc. Important stuff. Right, so you'll be using this website a lot, and that's just some of the things you will find there. So usually I'll put up the video in a day or two, depends on how quickly I can compress everything and upload it. But you'll find a lot of things at that website, and so that's my website. So this one is the general one, but the one for this specific class is that. The textbook we'll be using is Thomas's Calculus, Early Transcendentals, 14th edition. You don't need to get the textbook, but unfortunately, it's kind of mandatory for us to use the online homework system that comes with the textbook, MyMathLab, and you have to pay for that. Normally, I don't do that, but it's something that all calculus classes are doing now. So I'll talk a little bit more about how to access the homework as well. That's the math department website, because you should have it, and this is the Math 201 website. So this is not my website, this is the general website for this class, and you will find a lot of nice materials there as well, including past finals, which I will direct you to when needed. Don't look at them yet, so just keep those in mind. So the websites are very important for those reasons. This is a course description. It's a pretty typical calc class. We're pretty much going to talk about limits, derivatives, integrals, and their applications. Calculators are not permitted. You are not allowed to use any other electronics, depending on where you're coming from. That might be strange to you. But in top 1, 2, and 3, we don't use calculators at City College. So everything has to be in your noggin. Usually we'll give you nice numbers where you can either figure it out, or you'll be allowed to leave radicals or pi's or e's or ln's in your answers. Okay, so I mentioned here you don't need to get the text. That's the typical grading chart. And again, departmental policy says that the final exam must be worth 40%, so that's not something we have control over. But otherwise, the 60%, the grade breakdown will be as follows. We will have quizzes, homework, participation in class tests, final exams. So quizzes, you will have one every week. So you have a quiz every week. On weeks where you don't have tests. If you have a test, I won't give you a quiz as well. That's just a little bit too mean. So these are weekly quizzes. They will not be cumulative. Quizzes in general will cover the things that I covered from the previous week. So when we go through a Monday and a Wednesday, the following Monday I will quiz you on what we did on the previous Monday and Wednesday. Make sure that everyone is following. The homework is worth 10% of your grade. Quizzes are 15%, the homework is 10%, and like I said, that's through an online homework system. I'll give you more information on that. Participation is pretty much, I'm going to take attendance all the time. Yeah, took like 10 minutes to call everyone's name. Yeah, that's going to happen all the time. So pretty much if you show up, you get like 5%, which is awesome. So take advantage of that and show up. I will be giving 2 in-class tests. They are non-cumulative. I'll talk more about what they cover pretty soon. Each test will be worth 15%. And we will have a final exam. The final exam is cumulative, and because of the time slot which we are in, the final exam will be departmental, meaning I don't write your final. The math department assigns someone to write the final, and you will be taking their final. I will be grading it, but essentially at the end of the day, I'm preparing you to take someone else's final. So that's how you want to think about it. So, moving on to the next page. Makeup policy, you can't make up quizzes or homework, but if you miss an exam, because I'm not dropping any exams, if you have a very good reason for missing the exam, you should let me know about it and provide documentation. As I said, attendance is super important. I will be taking attendance every class, and it turns out by policy, if you miss more than 5 classes on excuse, you will automatically fail the class, so don't just not show up. Let's get to my stuff. Work ethic. Right? So that's just my little admonition to kind of tell you guys not to slack off. I know it's the first day, I know it's 8 a.m., but you really don't want to put things off. You really want to start working hard from day one, start studying what you'll need to study starting today. You will have stuff that you have to worry about already, so don't worry about that. I'll talk about that a little bit more. So yes, right out of the gate, there's a lot of stuff that you need to catch up on, and stuff that you probably would have known 3 months ago, but it's been a long summer, and a lot of people can forget a lot of things in a summer. I forgot all of calculus in the summer once when I was in high school. We did calculus in the spring, came back in the fall, couldn't remember anything. So I know you might forget more than you're realizing, so don't slack off. Make sure that you're going to start working hard from day one. As I mentioned, for the people who came in late, I'm not going to stop now, but make sure you see me at the end of class to make sure I know you're here and I have you mark on attendance. Okay, so anyone here has taken Calc 1 before? Have experience with Calc 1? Like in high school? We're talking high school? Or college? You did it in college? All right. So my advice to you would be forget about it. Especially in high school, it's not the same. It's not the same. I see students go, oh, I did calculus in high school, and they do really bad in college. It's not the same. As well as if you did Calc 1 at a community college, it's probably also not the same. So I don't want you, so as far as calculus, for those of you taking calculus before, just like, you know nothing, Jon Snow, just forget about it, and just focus on what I'm telling you, because chances are it might be a little bit different. And students who have experience with calculus, they tend not to pay as much attention because they think they know everything already, and that just hurts them in the long run. So if you have taken calculus before, I want you to work harder than anyone else, because chances are by you doing that, you're actually not. So just be aware of that. I'll talk a little bit more about what you'll need to know. As far as this class is concerned, the skills that you really need are algebra skills, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. There is no advantage to having taken calculus before. So don't think of it as an advantage. you, like everyone else, need to work hard to do well in this class. Okay, like I said, homework is submitted online through my math lab. That's from the publisher of your textbook. If you purchase the access to the online homework, you'll get a free version of the text, electronic version. If you happen to be old school and you'd like a paper version, it'll cost you a little bit extra. I'm not sure if these prices are up to date, but it'll roughly be about $80 for the online access. Just to talk about how quizzes will work, quizzes will be given during the beginning of class, so try to be early. So any day we have a quiz, the class will start with the quiz. So make sure you're early. Usually the quizzes are going to be short answer, fill in the blank kind of stuff. Tests will also be given during class. Those are more long form answers. You have to show your work. I'll give you partial credit, etc. The final will also be long form. You have to show your work that you write. You don't really do multiple choice exams here. And if you go on the next page, you will realize that this is how you can access the homework. So these are instructions for how to gain access to the homework. And yeah, the instructions are directly for this class. So you need to make sure that you put in the correct ID, which goes to my class, and make sure that the name of the class that comes up is Math 201-AA, Fall 2019. By the way, I'm just breezing through the syllabus. You guys really should go back and read it on your own slowly. Make sure you fully understand what's going on. Okay. What else? In terms of prerequisites, basically I expect you to remember all the math you've ever done before this. The math that is necessary for you to remember for this class will be algebra, trigonometry, and pre-calculus. So I can't really teach any of those topics. We won't really have time. So you need to make sure that if you forgot any of your algebra, you forgot any of your pre-calculus, you forgot any of your trig, you need to go over that on your own. Something that might be of help to you if you're into that sort of thing is that I taught pre-calculus in the spring and I recorded the lectures, and that's the link. So if you want to actually look at topics that you might have missed and you want to see what I expect you to know based on how I teach it, you can actually go to that link and you can actually watch the entire semester, or just whatever topics that you need to watch. Okay. Another important section is this section titled Blasphemies. Let's talk about that. Anyone knows what the word blasphemy means? Very inflammatory language. It's usually in a religious context. It's really just a really bad action for which there are really bad consequences. So this class will have blasphemies. It turns out a lot of the times, it's true in math, it's true in a lot of things, but sometimes knowing what not to do is just as important as knowing what to do. And so here are a list of mistakes that from now on, from henceforth, it is now unacceptable for you to make any of these mistakes. Anytime you make any one of these mistakes, I will give you a 0 for the problem that you made the mistake in, and I won't read anything else, I'll just move on. So, just to make sure that you all fully understand what these mistakes are, so you can't say, I didn't know that's what you're talking about. I'm actually going to go over the mistakes here, so you can know, if you do any one of these things, you will get a 0. And I'm not going to read anything else. Okay, so, 1. Do not, I started with cancel. Cancel. Cross. Sums. Sums can mean differences here as well. So that should just be something you should pay attention to. To give you a simple example. So say you're working on a problem, you're going through the steps. You eventually get to a point where you end up with like, 2x plus 1 all over 2. And you go, I can cancel the 2's. You cannot cancel the 2's. This is called canceling across a sum. If terms are separated by pluses or minuses, you cannot cancel across the plus or the minus. So because there is a minus sign, let's see. Well, I think I remembered to bring. This slide is kind of weird. I don't know what's going to show up. I have colored chalk for emphasis. So because there is a plus sign here, you actually cannot cancel because the terms are separated. The same is true, so that's actually wrong to do that. The same is true if you had a minus sign. So if you had something like 2x minus 1, the same applies. You cannot cancel because there is a plus or a minus separating terms. So that is also wrong. You can only cancel across multiplication and division. So if you had 2 times x plus 1 all over 2, you can cancel the 2's. That's fine. That is completely fine. Oh, I don't have my bright green here. I have a dark one. Let's see it's going to show up. So that one's fine. Okay? So canceling across sums, it happens very often. It's quite a silly mistake to make. And if you're a Calc 1 student, you shouldn't be making these mistakes. Very rookie mistake, algebra mistake. You cannot cancel across sums. You can only cancel across multiplication and division. Which means if you want to cancel something, you will first have to what we call factor, and so that you can write it as a product or a multiplication of terms, and then you can cancel across multiplication. So yeah, do this, I give you a 0. Right? So it doesn't matter if you like have 20 steps and then you do this. I don't care about those 20 steps. I'm going to give you a 0. Okay? Do not do that. Okay? Second thing, do not distribute powers across sums. Okay. Again, sum can mean a plus or a minus sign here. So, for example, you're going through and you see something like, okay, x plus 2 all squared, and oh, that's x squared plus 4. It is not x squared plus 4. That is very wrong. You do that, I give you a 0. Doesn't matter what else you write. Okay? This is called distributing a power across a sum. If there is a plus or a minus sign, separating terms inside parentheses, and you raise the whole thing to a power, you cannot move the power on and attach it to each term. That is incorrect. What is x plus 2 all squared? Yeah.
X squared plus 2x plus 4.
X squared plus
2x.
4x plus 4. Now there are a couple ways you could figure that out. Yeah, write this as x plus 2 times x plus 2. That's actually what it means to square something. And you can, what we call, FOIL. That's probably a bad way to think about it. Just apply the distributive law and multiply out and add all the terms. You could also remember that by, there's a nice formula for it. And this is called the square of the binomial formula. It does also come in the negative flavor. That's probably the easier way to think about it. And yeah, I would expect you to remember formulas like that. Here is, what about, what's that? What's the form for that? Yeah?
A minus b squared, is it a minus b squared?
A minus b squared?
No, it's not.
No? What is that?
It's a minus b times a.
Oh, but wait, what happened here?
A minus b, a.
Exactly the mistake that I said you should never make, right? The square can't factor off. Because what you're doing here is you're distributing a power across a sum. That is incorrect, very wrong. What is it actually? Yeah.
A minus b times a plus b.
This is called the difference of squares formula, something I would expect you to know. And one knows if it's cubed. Yeah?
A minus b times a squared plus AB or 2A, B plus.
Okay, there's no 2 here,
Yeah.
not like that. So that's actually a common mistake for people who put the 2 here. For cubes, it also works with the sum. You can do that. What about how do you factor a sum of squares? Yeah?
Would you use imaginary numbers?
Right, you would need imaginary numbers to actually do that. So for this, for us, we actually don't worry about complex numbers in this class, so you won't have to worry about it. So if you see something like a squared plus b squared, don't do anything. But I do expect you to remember all these formulas. I expect you to remember the quadratic formula and all that stuff, how to factor quadratic. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Here's a very common way for students. Even students who wouldn't make this mistake will often make this mistake. So it's continuation of this. Somebody just mentioned it here. A lot of times people get mixed up with radicals. So they see a radical, like x squared plus 4. They don't like radicals. Radicals scare them. So what they do, okay, let's get rid of the radical. Let's square root this and square root that. So that's x plus 2. Okay. It is not x plus 2. That is wrong. Right? Because you can't take the radical and attach it to this and attach it to that and then simplify it. Why? Because that is actually just reading a power across a sum. Remember that a radical is just a power. In particular, what is the square root as a power? It's 1/2 power. So when you see this, it's really this. And you can't take that power and put it here and get that. That is illegal. Right? And this one, it's not even like the last one where you just missed a middle term. To actually expand this as a sum of terms, you actually need an infinite amount of terms. So you're missing a lot, right, if you just put x plus 2, right? To see how that would actually expand, we're not going to do that in this class. That's Calc 2. You'll actually learn how to expand the radical. You'll get an infinite number of terms. Okay? So that's also very common. People see radicals over a sum and they try to attach the radical to everything else. It's very wrong, very illegal. Don't do it. Let's see. Third. I'm not sure. Don't divide by 0. Not 0 factorial. 0. Okay. So if you see something like 2 over 0, for example, it's meaningless. At least in calculus, it's meaningless. You can't divide by 0, right? So it's not, so I've seen students write, oh, this is infinity, or they might write, oh, maybe this is 0. No, it's neither of those, okay? Now, we will be talking about a topic where it would appear that we're dividing by 0, but we're not. That's the topic of limits. We'll talk about that when we get to it. But division by 0 is meaningless. Don't do it. So if you're doing something and you end up with a 0 in the denominator, it kind of means something is wrong, or some care is needed for that problem. Don't just ignore it. Not really going to say much more about that. I see it happen every now and then, but it's not as common as the first 2 mistakes. Here's something that's common though, and it's not really a blasphemy, but it is something that I see students do that causes them to lose a lot of points a lot of the time, and that is not using parentheses. So before I would say use parentheses. Not just because, use them properly. Now, what I'm talking about here is that there are times when a student might know that they should write down a parentheses, but they decide for whatever reason not to write it down. So for example, to illustrate this, let's actually maybe do a problem. Let's get to knock some rust off our algebra grade. So let's do some examples. I expect you to know what that means. That's just me writing down a function whose name is f, and it takes input values x, and it outputs values 2x minus x squared. Here's the problem. Compute this expression that's going to look familiar to a lot of you. Even for those of you who have taken calculus before, you will know kind of what that brings us to. If you haven't taken calculus, hold your horses, we're going to talk about that. This guy is called difference quotient, and it's a very important expression in calculus. And you might have seen it in algebra and pre-calc, and you might wonder, why do people keep asking me to compute this? In this class, you're going to find out why they ask you to compute it. It's a very important expression. Okay. Given that that's the problem, how would you actually do that? Yeah. Go, just.
Oh, so in parentheses, you would do 2x minus x squared plus h. So, well, that f. No, first f. Yeah, and then parentheses, no, not that whole thing. 2x minus x squared is in parentheses plus h. Minus parentheses, 2x minus x squared over h. Over h.
What's over h?
The whole thing.
Okay, so let's stop here for a moment. Let's make sure we know what's going on. So first thing, though I should put this in green, this is something I want you to do. A lot of students would not write the parentheses here. Okay? They'll say in their head, well, I know the parentheses should be the negative sign should distribute, right? So they'll just, for some reason, I don't know why, they just decide not to write it, right? So by me using step 4 is me trying to remind you, you need parentheses here. Okay? So write it down. A lot of times what will happen is they'll know the parentheses should be there, but they don't write it, but they continue the problem, and what happens 5 steps later is that they forgot the imaginary parentheses that at 5 steps earlier they knew was there, and then they just not distribute the negative sign and they get it wrong for that reason. But other than that, is this okay? Yeah?
Need parentheses around the h.
What?
Need parentheses around the first h. And yeah, around there.
Like parentheses like here?
No. You can move the parentheses before the addition sign. After the h.
Like that?
Shouldn't be x plus 2x, 2 times x plus h, and then minus parentheses x plus h squared.
Yes. Okay. So this is very wrong. It's also a very common mistake. Don't feel too bad about it. Very wrong. Okay? Now, what does f of x plus h mean? So that's a very common thing for students to do. For one, the very word that they have the f here, it shouldn't be there. But a lot of students will actually do that, and that is still incorrect. Because what is, in this example, what is 2x minus x squared plus h? How do you write that in terms of f? Yeah?
F of x plus h. Well,
As in f of x plus h, right? It's not f of x plus h. That's a very different thing. When you see f of x plus h, what does it mean when you see an x plus h inside the parentheses?
Substitute for h.
It means everywhere you saw an x, you will now put x plus h, right? So f of x says you're going to take 2 times the x and minus the x squared. So whatever is here goes in this position and that position. It doesn't matter what that thing is. So So if I were to say f of x equals 2x minus x squared, if someone were to ask me, what is f of 1? Well, it's 2 times 1 minus 1 squared. If someone were to ask me, what is f of 3? It's 2 times 3 minus 3 squared. What is f of x plus h? Well, it means in the parentheses, you would now put x plus h. Right? Someone asks you, what is f of smiley face? Well, as long as the smiley face is in the domain of the function, it's 2 times smiley face minus smiley face squared, right? This is called a composition of functions, and it means that you take x plus h, whatever shows up in the parentheses, shows up in h. You kind of want to think of functions as the x position in a function, when written like this, it's kind of like a placeholder. So you're really thinking of it like this, with the parentheses. So there's kind of, you just understand that this is just a placeholder. Whatever goes here, here. Okay? Very common mistake, students mix up f of x plus h and f of x plus h all the time. Very common mistake. There's a reason why I chose this example. It's like there's so many mistakes that happen with examples like these, it's not even funny. Okay? So, we need to know, first of all, what does it mean to take f of x plus h? It means everywhere I saw an x in the first time, I'm going to put parentheses x plus h. So it's going to be 2 times x plus h minus x plus h squared. Where there should be parentheses here. Now, missing any of these pairs of parentheses will cause you a lot of trouble in general. You do not want to forget them. Okay. So that is the correct first step. Okay, now let's continue over here. What happens now?
So you distribute, you get 2x plus 2h minus parentheses, x squared plus xh, h squared, and it's 2xh.
2xh, remember that formula.
Plus 2xh. Parentheses minus parentheses, like this.
Well, we can expand those at this
Oh,
point,
okay.
right?
Yeah, and plus, yeah, okay. Whole over h.
So that would be the next step. Again, here, notice that he kept the parentheses there. There's so many opportunities to drop a parentheses, and there's so many times where a student will, like, they're doing good, and then like on one of the last steps, they lose focus and they just forget to put something down. Really, just have it in your mind. Once there's a negative sign, you need to put a parentheses after it. And usually, if you're multiplying two expressions, you need each expression to be in a parentheses where you can apply the distributive law. So at this point, we can distribute the negative sign, right? So oh, we can cancel the h here, right? No. You do that, you get 0. Okay? Happens all the time, right? Be careful. I see it all the time. Don't do that. Okay, so you cannot cancel the h. Why? It's separated by, it's a sum. You cannot cancel across a sum. Okay, be careful. So we can't cancel. What can we do? Yeah?
Cancel the 2x minus 2x, because 2x
Right.
minus 2x here plus,
2x minus 2x.
and then negative x squared plus x squared.
Right, now this will cancel each other. Now, if you forgot to put the parentheses, it would not cancel. And then you wouldn't get to what you should get to. Can we do anything else? Okay, so now we have 2h minus 2xh minus h squared all over h. Oh, so now we can cancel this h. No, you cannot cancel across the sum. Trying to see if I catch it. Wait a second. Throw the chalk down. Well, no, it's 8 a.m. I'll let it slide a little bit. But just make sure by the time you get to a test or a quiz, it's not happening. It's 8 a.m. the first day, whatever. Okay. I won't hit anything today.
Oh, yeah, question. Can you skip the factoring the H out process? Like, let's say if you're up to there and you already know the answer. Do you still have to write the next step? Like, for example, can you just write 2?
Yes, I would prefer you do. Yes. So, one thing you can do is realize that H is what we call a common term. I can factor that out. And now, since there's multiplication, I can cancel across the multiplication. And so this guy, at the end of the day, it's not a lot of chord space, is it? At the end of the day, this will simplify to 2 minus 2x minus h. And that will be the correct answer. One thing that you can be like if you have f of x minus f of x, let's say translate this. If here's something you can notice. If, and now this is wrong, that's why I'm writing it in red. If interpreted as f of x plus h minus f of x all over h, you'll always get 1. So normally on like a quiz or something, if I ask a problem like this, even if I don't see the work that the student did, if they write down 1 as the answer, I kind of know what happened, right? It's this kind of mistake. So be very suspicious if you compute this and you get 1. It's hardly likely that I'm going to ask you a question like that. Because what will happen is the f of x minus the f of x, they'll just kill each other and you elevate h over h to cancel it. It will always give you 1, no matter what f looks like. So, yeah, so, but don't make that mistake. This means everywhere you see x, replace with parentheses x plus h. And then you follow the rules of algebra for whatever, however that actually pans out. Now, this is called the difference quotient. Now, I will talk about this in the future when we're talking about the difference quotient again, but an expression like this is not considered simplified unless you actually cancel the h in the denominator. Why is it so important to cancel the h in the denominator? Stay tuned. We'll find out in, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. So, let's cancel the h in the denominator. To be considered simplified. Now, because of that reason, because a lot of students know the point is to cancel the h, they'll prematurely try to cancel it before. Do not fall victim to that. You cannot cancel across sums. Be very careful. So, use of parentheses, very important. It's going to be very easy to mess up. And again, a lot of students neglect to write them because even though they know better, they just don't write them. But the thing is, when you're in a test and you're anxious and I'm like, 5 minutes left, and you start freaking out, you're not going to remember all the imaginary parentheses that you have all over the place. Write them down, just be safe. Write down, be very precise in how you write things down. It's surprising how there are a lot of these things that people never really think about that just makes your life a lot easier and makes just going through a technical subject easier. Things like just being detail-oriented and how you write things down, having proper notation and everything like that, that would solve so many problems, right? The fact that students are sloppy and they just decide not to write things even though they know better causes so much trouble. And a lot of people just not knowing how what notations mean. So again, like we were saying, a lot of students, when they start to plug in the function, they'll keep the F over here. That's incorrect. That means you don't understand how the notation is working. You need to, take care of that. So things like just knowing your definitions, writing neatly, being detail-oriented, paying attention to notation. Just doing that alone can solve so much of your problems. It's not even funny. A lot of people think that they need to be a math genius to do it. You don't. In fact, you can get an A in this class and not have any clue what's going on. And maybe I'll talk about that pretty soon. But a lot of it just comes down to you being neat. So use parentheses properly. So it's not something that you might get an instant 0 for, but if you get a problem wrong because you didn't use parentheses, I'm definitely going to mark you down heavily for it, because it's a very silly reason to use points. So be careful how you're writing things down. In general, when I'm in class and when I'm solving problems on the board, in general, the way in which I write things down is how I'd like you to write things down. So if you're kind of wondering, oh, well, how much do I have to write in order for me to get full credit for this problem? Write it exactly as I wrote it, right? All the steps that I show, you have to show, right? I'm going to show you what I want you to do. So just do as I do, pretty much, right? You'll never have to worry about, well, I don't know if I'm writing enough for Jhevon to give me 100% credit. No, if you write it the way I wrote it down, you'll get all the credit. Okay? So it's very important the way you write things down, so I'm going to try to make an example of writing things down in a good way, because it'll help you in the future. So yeah, blasphemy section, very important. A lot of common mistakes can be avoided here. A lot longer than expected. Anyway, let's forge ahead. Contact. When necessary, I'll email you via the email you have at CUNY First. So whatever email you have uploaded into CUNY First, that's the contact information I will have for you. And I'll be emailing you there. I'll send important announcements if need be, as well as I will send you a link so that you can view your report card electronically. So you'll always know how you're doing in the class. So pay attention to any emails that come from me. Feedback, highly encourage feedback. So don't worry, you won't hurt my feelings. Just make sure your feedback is constructive and we can sort of help each other find a better way to present everything. So don't just be like, your teaching sucks. Be like, your teaching sucks because maybe you should do this. Help. There are many places you'll be able to get help. First of all, your online homework system, the MyMathLab, there's a lot of help there. They provide hints to a lot of the problems and a lot of helpful links while you're going through the homework. But other than that, you can of course see me during my office hours. You can check the website because I'll put a lot of important information there. So you'll have quizzes and answers, and sometimes I'll post advice on the website, and et cetera, et cetera. So pay attention to the website. Free tutoring is available in the Marshak Tutoring Center. I believe it starts September 3rd. And the typical schedule is Monday through Thursday, 12 to 5, Fridays, 12 to 4. So that's in the Marshak building. That's across the street, the tall building, 4th floor, room 403. It's free. Just go, you sign up, you get help with one of the tutors that are already there. A lot of online resources are available. mathhelpforum.com, Wolfram Alpha, Symbolab.com, graph.tk if you want to graph stuff. Even I use these sites like all the time, so it's not just something for Calc 1 students. Like I use it all the time myself. Right? So they're very useful things. Some students like Desmos.com for graphing. Of course, there's YouTube, Khan Academy, and all that good stuff. Don't be afraid to use whatever source is necessary to make sure you're understanding the material. This was a friend of mine who used to do tutoring on his Twitch account. I don't know if he's still doing it, but I just put it there just in case. As well as another important resource is your classmates. So everyone should get the contact information of 1 or 2 other people in the class, so you can form study groups, maybe catch up on anything you missed. If you think you will be entitled to accommodations because of a disability you might have that might impede your performance in the class, you should go see the disabilities office. Do that as soon as possible within the first week of class. Usual rules: silence your cell phones, no talking, no eating. I mean, if you have to drink your coffee, it's 8 a.m., that's fine. Make sure you remove your garbage afterwards. The statement of academic integrity: don't cheat. If I catch you, it will be very bad. Usual advice over here, which during the course of the semester, I guess I'll talk a little bit more about, because, like I said, there's sometimes, I don't know if surprising is the right word, but there are a lot of things that students don't do that they should be doing that will just make things better, and they don't realize that they're not doing it. Like not believing in yourself. It sounds cheesy, but it's actually very important. It's true. Next page is some selected dates from the academic calendar. If you want to view the full calendar, you can go to the link right there, but these are just some important dates, including one of the most important is the last day to withdraw from the class is November 5th. So by that time, you should have a test and a bunch of quizzes from me, and you would have done a bunch of homeworks. So you should have a pretty good idea of how you're doing in the class before that point, so you can make an informed decision. But that's the last day for you to jump ship if you have to, but you shouldn't have to. Yeah, as well as sometimes CUNY just decides that it wants to switch days to kind of keep things level. So it'll decide on a Thursday. Let's pretend it's Monday. It'll do things like that. So that will also do. Your final exam week is December 16th to the 20th. Usually they have the final exam schedule up by now, but for some reason they don't have it yet. So I don't actually know when your final will be, but as soon as I know, I will let you know. I did post a link to the final exam schedule. Right, and if you look on the next page, so this is it. This is the roadmap. This is what we'll be covering in the class, right? So this is a list of all the topics that we will be going through, as well as either over here to the left or over here in bold. It will signify the section of the textbook that we will be going through in order to cover that material. And I listed some problems here from the textbook that it might be useful to help you in your practice. Even though I won't be collecting these problems, you're doing your homework online, you might want extra practice and you can practice those. As you should note, I'm not really going in order. I'm kind of going in the order that makes sense to me to present the material, as well as I'm not going to regurgitate the textbook. You can read the textbook on your own, right? I'm going to present the material how I want to present it, and you can look at the textbook for an alternative point of view a lot of times. A lot of times I'm not going to be saying the same things. And I changed the order because it makes sense for me to make it flow in this order. Right, so that's the list of topics. Another thing that you will notice is the dates of each test. So you'll notice that we have 2 tests. Test 1 is going to be on October 30th, right? So that date is pretty much fixed, right? It's going to be October 30th no matter what. Even if I don't finish all the material before October 30th in the first half, whatever we get up to, I'm testing on that on October 30th. October 30th is the date of the test, okay? If we don't cover anything, I'll just push that to test 2, but test 2, the date of that will be December 11th, and by that point, we'll have covered everything. Like I said, the final exam date, time, and location, I don't know at the moment, but on the electronic version of the syllabus, I put a hyperlink to the final exam schedule, so as soon as they update it, you should be able to see it there. This is the course learning outcomes. We're accredited, so I kind of have to make sure you know where to find this, so I just put it in the syllabus. And the last page is a questionnaire. It's anonymous. Please fill this out. Once you're done, just rip it off, and I'm going to the end of the class. And I'll give you guys a few minutes to do that. In the meantime, are there any questions? If you came in late, make sure you get a syllabus. listening. Who else came in late? Raise your hand. Let me make sure. Attendance is important. So the last one?
Is it yes or no? I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's yes. It's definitely yes.
Anyone else was late?
Good. Nah, you can't respond.
You're not sure that you'll be able to do a lot more. And it will complexify and make it also. Change your way to calculate like that.
No, what is that?
Oh. Was there anyone else who was late? I didn't get you for attendance.
I'm not seeing that.
Any questions while you guys are filling that out? Questions, concerns, comments? Another pro tip students don't normally think about, class participation. It's actually pretty important. So don't be shy when asked for input. Just say what you're thinking. It's, language is actually pretty important to learning. And there's a good NPR podcast on this. I believe it's called Words. It was from a few years ago. Where pretty much if you disrupt someone's ability to use language, you can disrupt their cognition, spatial, like language is important, right? The more you can talk about something and you can talk about it correctly, the actual better it is for you to learn. You'll understand it a lot better. So if you have trouble talking about or articulating your thoughts, that's actually a red flag. So you should practice talking about what you're thinking. And I can correct you if I need to, and that will make everything all the better.
Everyone knows places.
Well, this can be informed by
More than
Is this part also going on YouTube too?
Huh?
Is this part also going on YouTube too?
Yeah. I mean, people are thinking fast forward. Not going to cut it out so that people watching can have the full experience. So no questions? We're all cool? I think I will work 2 or 5 minutes. And it kind of depends on how much Okay, so next order of business. We have our first quiz today. So put your stuff away. Let's get going. A quiz of the week, right? Them's the rules. Put your stuff away, no calculator, close the laptop. So when you're leaving, you can hand in the quiz and your questionnaire. So just have your question. You'll have the rest of the class period. Hurry up.
I didn't get one.
Can you pass the please? Okay, so you have the end of the class period. Note that is double-sided. So work quickly. I wouldn't necessarily do it in order, just do whatever you remember first. And come back to things if you need to.